Hello, Massachusetts Democrats. You know, I wish we could be together in person, but we know that's just not possible right now. Even so, I am honored to be with you virtually today because the last year has been a trying time for communities all across our Commonwealth and our nation. The reason that we have made it to this point is because we have stood together. A truth that would not have been possible without the help of bold, courageous leaders in our party. Resistors and persisters, like our chairman, Gus Bickford, our dynamic vice chairs, Deb Kozakowski and Leon Braithwaite, and Ray Jordan, our chair emeritus. Thank you all. I also want to say a very special thank you to the Lowell Host Committee for working so hard to plan another successful convention. I am so sorry that we can't be there in person this year, but I know that we are all eager to get back to the Tsongas Center as soon as we possibly can. I've had the chance to connect person to person with many of you again at meet and greets all across the state. And, you know, things are different right now. We don't get to shake hands, we don't get to hug or take selfies the way that we used to. But even so, we're together, we connect heart to heart. And in these town halls, I've heard loud and clear the fears that you have about the fights ahead in Washington. Racial justice, economic justice, climate justice, reproductive justice, and the urgent need to invest in children and working families. So many fights, so many fears. But here is why I am hopeful. Despite the challenges that we face right here in Washington, fear never dominates us in Massachusetts. We know you don't get what you don't fight for. So here's how I see the path forward. For the first time in more than a decade, Democrats have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. Stop for a moment and just say, woohoo. A Democratic majority in a time of crisis means the door to change has been opened, at least a crack. In this moment, what was once thought of as impossible now becomes possible. And that means this is the moment to fight with everything we've got. We can reimagine our tax code with billionaires and giant corporations actually paying a fair share. We can pass universal child care. We can expand Medicare to cover vision, dental, and hearing. And we can make a real commitment to fight back against climate change. So let's get the infrastructure bill all the way across the finish line, building more muscle, working with each other along the way. Let's agree then on the voting rights bill, which we're very close to in the Senate. And then let's set our sights on the filibuster, the greatest threat to making change. I know that is a lot to do at the same time, but we just can't afford to drop the ball. Our system has long been rigged to work for the wealthy and the well-connected against everyone else. But right now, like I said, that door is open. Maybe just a crack, but it is open for us to make the system a little more fair. And I'm hitting that door as hard as I can, fighting to make this a nation that works not just for a tiny number at the top, but a nation that works for everyone. And that brings me to one more fight that we should all see as our own. In Massachusetts, tech giants like Uber and Lyft and Instacart have been illegally denying their drivers and delivery workers fair pay, benefits, and basic protections. There's no minimum wage, no reimbursement for gas and other expenses, no sick time, no unemployment, no Social Security benefits. If workers are injured, if they're discriminated against, if they're harassed, they're just on their own. Here in Massachusetts, we are not willing to look the other way. We think everyone should follow the law. So Attorney General Maura Healey is suing two of the biggest companies, Uber and Lyft. She says either follow the law or pay a big fine, just like any other lawbreaker would have to do. But instead of following the law, these giant companies launched a $100 million lobbying campaign to change the law, to make their exploitation permanent. We've seen this story already once in California. Out in California, when Proposition 22 passed, unionized grocery store workers across the state were laid off and replaced with app-based drivers. Hotel workers lost their jobs. Retail workers lost their jobs. It was a disaster for workers who are trying to pay the rent and keep food on the table. Now these companies want to come across the country to Massachusetts, and they want to run the same play. Big tech wants to buy a law here in Massachusetts, and they want that law to apply across the board to drivers, hotel workers, retail workers. Let's face it, they have no stopping point. Well, not on my watch. I am proud to stand with workers and to stand with unions, to stand with allies, to stand with civil rights groups and say no to these big tech companies and their millions of dollars that they're willing to spend to try to buy a different law here in Massachusetts. Our laws are not for sale, not to big tech, not to anyone. We will not abandon our workers, not to big tech, not to anyone. Big tech cannot boost their own profits by squeezing workers to the breaking point, not here in Massachusetts. So look, I get it. They're going to spend a lot of money. This is an uphill battle, but my heart is full of optimism because on this fight, and on so many others, this defines who we are. And there are a whole lot more of us in this fight than there are of them. And here's what I know for sure. When we stand together, when we fight together, when we persist together, we win. So let's get this done, Democrats.